A man sat frozen inside a blue gate, his face twisted in shock at the sight before him. A sense of dread gripped his heart as he stared at the figure looming ahead, a blue-skinned elf radiating a terrifying aura. Trembling, he mustered the courage to ask, "What are you?" The elf, seemingly uninterested in answering, was searching for the fragments of brilliant light. With a cold glance at the man, he murmured,
"You are not one either."
Before anything more could be said, a sudden shift in the air signaled another arrival. A swirling portal opened behind them, and a strange humanoid figure stepped out. Without hesitation, Elf asked,
"Yogamont, what are you doing here?"
Yogamont turned. His replied,
"Delivering information about the Eastern Territory."
"The small island to the east, the land of the Shadow Monarch. Didn't you decide to handle that place yourself?"
The mage nodded, but spoke with urgency.
"The rulers plan to release Legius south of there, so I will claim that land instead."
Hearing this, the elf's interest piqued.
"And the Shadow Monarch?"
The mage dismissed the concern with a wave.
"It won't be an issue as long as the architect fulfills its role."
Then, lowering his voice, he shared a crucial piece of information.
"The greatest fragment of brilliant light. It has been confirmed to be there."
A wicked smile spread across the elf's face.
"Interesting."
But before they could continue their conversation, something changed. A presence, a realization. They had been lured here. From the shadows, a ragged man emerged, his gaze sharp and unwavering.
"The small eastern territory you speak of, you mean Korea?"
The elf turned toward him, intrigued.
"Why? Does it interest you?"
The mage, clearly impatient, scoffed.
"We don't have time to waste on him."
He turned to leave, but the man's grip tightened on his daggers. Without hesitation, he lunged. Before his blades could reach their target, a massive wall of ice erupted between them, stopping the attack in its tracks. The impact was devastating, sending shockwaves through the air and shattering the surrounding landscape. Meanwhile, deep within the Red Gate, Jin-Woo stood face to face with a towering monster. Surrounded by its minions, the beast let out a mocking laugh. "For someone so small, you've come quite far." It turned its gaze toward the dense forest and roared, summoning its comrades. But to its shock, no one came. Confusion flickered in its eyes as it turned back, just in time to hear a commanding voice. "Come out." At Jin-Woo's call, Igris and the shadows emerged, dragging the corpses of slain monsters behind them. The monster's expression twisted in horror, and then a severed head flew through the air. Panic set in as it realized the truth. It was surrounded. Jin-Woo's voice was calm but merciless. "Kill them." With a single command, the Dark Army surged forward, clashing with the monsters in a brutal battle. Chaos erupted, but among the enemy ranks, fear took hold. Some monsters, unwilling to fight the shadow soldiers, broke formation and charged toward Jin-Woo instead. But he never made it. A massive shadow bear emerged behind them, roaring as it struck with overwhelming power, scattering them in all directions. Their leader, watching in horror, cursed his own forces. Before he could utter another word, Baru and Igris struck. His body crumpled before he even realized what had happened. In the midst of the carnage, Tusk unleashed his colossal magic, summoning a force so strong that the earth itself trembled. With his gravitational acceleration skill, he crushed the remaining enemies beneath his overwhelming strength. As the battlefield settled, Jin-Woo stepped forward, his gaze locked onto the final monster. His voice was quiet, yet it carried an unmistakable weight. "Answer my questions, and I will grant you a swift and painless death." But before he could extract any information, the system interfered. Jin-Woo sighed. "No matter. One way or another, I will learn the truth." Reaching into his inventory, he pulled out an item he had obtained long ago, the key from the cursed box. Now, finally, after reaching level 100 during the Jeju raid, he could see its details. Allows the user to enter the Kartanon Temple. The entrance location will be revealed in 417 hours, 6 minutes, 52 seconds. Jin-Woo stared at the key, a wave of memories flooding his mind. The double dungeon, the horrors he faced. No matter how much he tried to forget, the system refused to let him. A smirk played on his lips. So, you're calling me back to where it all began? His grip tightened around the key as his confidence surged. If this was planned from the start, if you've been waiting for me to return, then wait for me. I'm coming. Jin-Ho sat in his office, clicking his mouse repeatedly, his agitation evident in every sharp motion. He was on a mission to eliminate the haters who had been targeting their guild. No one who dared to harm his brother would be spared. With a sigh of satisfaction, he leaned back in his chair. The task was complete. The most ardent critics of his brother had been silenced. Just then, the door creaked open and Jin-Woo stepped inside. Jin-Ho nearly jumped in surprise. Where had he come from? He had disappeared without a trace, only to reappear as if he had sprouted from the very ground. You have been working hard. Jin-Woo's voice was calm, but Jin-Ho could sense an underlying exhaustion. Jin-Ho's eyes widened. Something was off. Jin-Woo's disheveled appearance suggested he had just been through something rough. Brother, why do you look like that? Jin-Woo waved off the concern. I just got out of a dungeon. Then, pulling a bag from his inventory, he revealed a stash of top-tier mana crystals. Jin-Ho's eyes sparkled with excitement. These would cover the guild's expenses for a long time, but one person in the room wasn't celebrating. Jin-Woo frowned at Jin-Ho's words. Workers? Salaries? What are you talking about? Jin-Ho blinked before realization struck. Ah, don't you remember? We need one more founding member. Hearing this, Jin-Woo said, That's right. We need at least 3 members to form a proper guild, a director, a deputy director, and an employee. Even if to fill the quota someone diligent would be nice. Jin-Woo sighed. He had no interest in discussing this further, and asked, Is that all? Jin-Ho replied, There's another issue we need to settle, the name of our guild. Jin-Woo hadn't given it any thought. It simply wasn't a priority for him. Jin-Ho, on the other hand, had already brainstormed several possibilities. How about the Sung Guild, in honor of its 2 founders, he suggested. Then, after a brief pause, he frowned. Or maybe, you Sung. But I wouldn't dare have my name should first. He continued rambling. We could combine our names, Woo-Ho Guild. No, that sounds weird. What about Jin-Jin? That has a nice ring to it. Jin-Woo cut him off with a single suggestion. Solo play. Jin-Ho froze. He could hardly believe his ears. Brother, are you serious? He turned away, rubbing his temples. This must be a joke, right? Before he could protest further, a knock at the door interrupted them. Both men exchanged puzzled glances before Jin-Ho moved to open it. A soft yet firm voice greeted them.
Is this the office of Hunter Sung Jin-Woo's guild?
Jin-Ho's jaw dropped. Standing before him was none other than Hunter Cha Hai-in. Jin-Woo, too, was taken aback. Hunter Cha? What brings you here? Her response was simple.
I want to join your guild.
Silence filled the room. Jin-Woo blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. Could you repeat that?
I want to join Sung Jin-Woo's guild.
Still bewildered, Jin-Woo searched for an explanation. Did the association send you? Cha frowned.
What does the association have to do with this?
Jin-Woo pressed further. Did Hunter Choi kick you out of your current guild? Cha shook her head.
No.
Jin-Woo couldn't make sense of it. Why would someone of her caliber leave her established guild to join his? When he asked why she wanted to join our solo play guild, her expression changed. Cha's face turned blue.
Solo? Your guild is called Solo Play?
Jin-Ho, sensing the awkward tension, jumped in. No. Brother was just joking. He hasn't finalized the name yet. Jin-Woo, with a confused expression, thought his judgments got clouded. Due this confusing situation, Jin-Woo ignored him, his focus locked onto Cha. Something about her felt off. Her heartbeat, breathing, and gaze. She was clearly hiding something. Jin-Woo knew that Cha Hai-in had awakened less than 2 years ago and still had a contract with her current guild. Breaking that contract meant paying a hefty penalty. Yet, she was willing to pay. Why? Jin-Woo narrowed his eyes. You know we can't afford to compensate you at your level. Cha smiled faintly.
That doesn't matter to me.
Jin-Woo's suspicion deepened. Was she truly willing to take a disadvantageous deal just to be part of his guild? Cha hesitated, uncertain whether to reveal the truth. She remembered the moment she first met him, drawn by the scent that surrounded Jin-Woo. It started out of curiosity. He was like the only light in this dark world, and at the last raid during the terrifying battle, she thought she would die. She had never encountered anything like it. When she had regained consciousness, the Hunter Association's president was at her side, assuring her that she was safe. She had been airlifted to the hospital, and when she asked the president if Hunter Jin-Woo had also come to the raid, the president shook his head. She thought so because it wasn't a dream, and she really almost died that time. And she realized that if suddenly something happened on one of the raids, what would she do? Thinking about it, she got confused. She couldn't say that she wanted him by her side until her last breath. She was so ashamed of what she thought she blushed, and Jin-Woo couldn't understand what was happening to her. After all, she couldn't tell him about it. After all, judging from her flushed face, she is definitely hiding something, and he doesn't know what's in her mind. But realized that the fact that she might have planned everything in advance cannot be ruled out, and he ended up asking what her answer was. She clenched her fists.
I just want to live comfortably. Am I not allowed to?
Jin-Woo was momentarily caught off guard. No, that's not it. Jin-Ho, ever the observer, leaned in. Even Cha herself came here looking for peace. That must mean the hunter world is even harsher than I imagined. She was only 22 or 23 years old, yet the burden of responsibility weighed heavily on her. She was badly injured during the raid on the island. Jin-Woo cleared his thoughts and said that to join the guild, one must pass a certain test, which the letter didn't mention. After all, it had appeared to them relatively recently, so the vice president had just forgotten about it. Turning to Jin-Ho, Jin-Woo instructed, "Go downstairs and bring us something to eat and drink." As soon as Jin-Ho left, Cha Hai-in wasted no time.
What kind of test?
She asked, her voice steady and determined. Jin-Woo studied her for a moment before answering. "You'll have to defeat one of my summons." She let out a small sigh, crossing her arms.
Is that really how low your evaluation of me is?
Then, her gaze sharpened.
Which summon is it?
Jin-Woo smirked. "For you, I'll pick my strongest warrior." With a confident gleam flickering in her eyes. She replied.
Good.
The huntress was eager to join the guild. She abruptly stood up from the couch and asked excitedly,
When do we start the test?
Jin-Woo gave a small nod. "Right now. How about we have it at the Hunter Association's gym?" However, just as he suggested it, he realized something: the journey there would take quite some time. Not wanting to waste time, he decided to try Shadow Exchange, a skill that allowed him to switch places with any shadow soldier. The only downside was that after using it, it would become unavailable for 3 hours, with its cooldown depending on its level. As the huntress approached the door, ready to leave, Jin-Woo spoke up. "We don't have to go through there. There's an easier way to get there." She turned back, curious.
What do you mean?
Jin-Woo hesitated slightly before adding, "You'll have to stand a little closer to me, if you don't mind." She didn't fully understand what he meant, but before she could ask, Jin-Woo suddenly pulled her against him. Her face flushed red at the unexpected closeness. And in that same instant, the shadows beneath them swallowed them whole. At the same moment, Jin-Ho returned to the room carrying a tray of food. "I brought some snacks so we can talk in peace," he started, but mid-sentence, he froze. Instead of Jin-Woo and Cha Hai-in, a shadow orc stood in the room. Jin-Ho blinked in shock. The shadow orc, completely unfazed, simply reached out and took the food from Jin-Ho's hands, immediately digging in. Jin-Ho could only stare in disbelief. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo and Cha Hai-in reappeared inside the Hunter Association's training hall. She stumbled slightly from the sudden teleportation, her eyes wide in shock.
How did we get here?
Jin-Woo analyzed her reaction. His assumption had been correct. Shadow Exchange worked like a gateway, instantly connecting two locations via his shadow soldiers. The fact that he could bring others along only confirmed his theory. He turned to her and said, "Let's begin the test." Cha Hai-in suddenly looked flustered.
Wait, I forgot my weapon.
Jin-Woo raised an eyebrow and asked, "That pickaxe you had in the dungeon?" At his words, she turned bright red.
That wasn't my weapon.
She protested. Seeing her reaction, Jin-Woo smirked. "I was just joking." She let out a small sigh and said,
It's fine. I can find something suitable in the warehouse.
She walked over to the armory section of the training hall. Since the training was regularly conducted here, they had built a sizable weapon storage beside the hall. Though not the best, the weapons there were sufficient for sparring. After a brief search, she picked out a sword that suited her. Turning back to Jin-Woo, she said,
I'm ready.
Jin-Woo glanced at the weapon and asked, "Will that be okay?" "It's not your usual sword." She shook her head.
It doesn't matter. A monster doesn't care whether I'm comfortable or not.
That answer impressed him. Well said. However, he hesitated. With her fighting style, an ordinary shadow soldier wouldn't stand a chance. She would tear through them in a matter of seconds. Instead, he made a decision. Jin-Woo raised his hand and summoned Igris. "Among my soldiers, he's the best swordsman." The huntress looked at the knight and asked,
How do we decide the winner?
Jin-Woo answered, "Until one of you surrenders." Although he had said he would let her fight his strongest warrior, Jin-Woo was concerned that Baru might traumatize her even further. In this case, Igris was the best choice. As she stepped into position, Jin-Woo turned his attention to her sword. Any weapon would do. "Turn away for a second," he instructed. She looked puzzled, but complied. Taking the opportunity, Jin-Woo pulled out the Demon King's longsword and handed it to Igris. "Use this." A moment later, the battle began. Igris charged forward, his new sword flashing. As he swung it down, a bright lightning bolt struck the ground, the sheer force shaking the entire hall. Jin-Woo watched closely. She was fast, faster than he expected. A normal human would have been obliterated by that attack, but she dodged and countered as if fighting on equal terms. Elsewhere, the president of the Hunter Association sat in his office, filling out paperwork. His gaze shifted to the window, where he noticed a light on in the training room. He frowned. No one booked the hall today. Curious, he picked up his phone and instructed his subordinates, "Send me the surveillance footage of the training hall." When the footage arrived, 2 hunters were inside the gym. Then, a realization dawned upon him. He remembered the time when Cha Hai-in had asked him if Jin-Woo had been at the raid. At the time, he hadn't thought much of it. But now, he quickly ordered, "Turn off cameras in the training room. Put it on record as an inspection." Just as he finished speaking, the picture frame behind him suddenly shifted from the impact of a powerful strike in the gym. The president doesn't seem surprised by this, thinking about, this is the power of youth. Back in the training hall, Jin-Woo's eyes widened in surprise. Igris had just been thrown back, crashing into the wall. Cha Hai-in lowered her sword and glanced at Jin-Woo.
Was that Black Knight really your strongest summon?
She took a step forward, gaze unwavering.
You said you would summon the strongest. Please summon him.
Jin-Woo hesitated. That might be dangerous for you. She didn't back down.
I don't care. I still want to fight him again.
At that moment, Jin-Woo realized she knew about Baru. His expression shifted. He called, "Baru." His shadow stirred ominously. "Are you sure?" he asked again. Cha Hai-in met his gaze without hesitation. He asked her again, "Will you really be okay?" Although Baru was weaker than when he was alive, he was originally born to kill hunters, and right now the advantage was not on Cha Hai-in's side. At that moment, Jin-Woo heard Baru's voice.
"My king, what should I do with the huntress?"
Jin-Woo responded firmly. "Defeat her, but don't let her get hurt." The moment the command left his lips, Baru let out a terrifying screech. The entire training hall trembled as the powerful sound wave shattered every light bulb, plunging the room into darkness. The huntress's breath hitched, she could feel it. Baru was strong. She clenched her sword. How had Jin-Woo fought this monster alone? Through the darkness, Baru's sharp fangs gleamed menacingly. Just as he prepared to strike, stop. Jin-Woo's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Baru instantly froze. Jin-Woo's tone was cold. If she gets hurt, I won't forgive you. Lowering his fangs, Baru bowed his head slightly.
As my king commands.
The huntress, however, was already searching for an opening. Suddenly, Baru vanished and reappeared behind her in an instant. Her eyes widened, just like last time. Reacting instinctively, she swung her sword, but Baru effortlessly deflected it. He hadn't forgotten Jin-Woo's orders. He couldn't harm her, but he had another command to follow.
Break the enemy's spirit.
With that, the real fight began. Cha Hai-in launched a relentless barrage of attacks, her blades slashing toward Baru at blinding speed. But no matter how hard she tried, her sword never found its mark. Baru weaved through her strikes, effortlessly dodging in mid-air. Then a sudden burst of sound erupted from Baru. The high-frequency shockwave struck Cha Hai-in, sending her stumbling back. Her body hit the floor, and she barely managed to recover. Jin-Woo, watching closely, narrowed his eyes. That was enough. The match is over. But Cha Hai-in didn't back down. She tightened her grip on her sword, her breathing ragged. She wasn't done. Jin-Woo frowned. Why? It made no sense. The difference in strength was clear. Why was she still pushing forward? Even Baru seemed momentarily conflicted. But then his instincts took over. Once a creature has danced on the brink of life and death, it learns to recognize one fundamental truth: predator or prey. And for Baru, resisting a predator was unacceptable. His aggression sharpened, his movements became faster, deadlier. But so did hers. She dodged, again and again. She leaped from side to side, avoiding every strike meant to finish her. Then her sword began to glow. Jin-Woo's eyes widened. Cha Hai-in's movements became fluid, relentless, and terrifyingly precise. With a final leap, she pounced on Baru, her sword slashing down in a devastating final blow. The weapon shattered. A gasp escaped her lips. It broke? Her strongest attack, the only chance she had left, and it had failed. Still, she wasn't done. Pouring everything into one last strike, she used the Sword of Light skill, lunging toward Baru with blinding speed and force. And then she hit him. Jin-Woo's heart pounded. In that moment, something awoke inside Baru. A voice, a command given at his birth.
Destroy the enemy.
A deep, red aura exploded around him. His eyes blazed with aggression. Jin-Woo instantly knew this wasn't part of the test anymore. Baru was about to kill her. "Stop!" Jin-Woo shouted. But it was too late. The attack had already been launched. The moment before impact, Jin-Woo moved, faster than anyone could see. He appeared between them, blocking the strike with his own body. Dust exploded around them as the impact shook the entire hall. Silence fell. As the dust settled, Jin-Woo glared at Baru. "I ordered you to stop. Why did you disobey?" Baru staggered backward, then he dropped to his knees.
My king, please forgive me.
Jin-Woo exhaled slowly. He turned toward Cha Hai-in, his expression unreadable. "Why are you taking such a risk?" he asked. She didn't answer. Jin-Woo's gaze hardened. "What benefit is there in joining this guild? This is just a test for a nameless guild. Why would you put your life on the line for this? What drives you?" Still, she remained silent. Jin-Woo stared at her, trying to understand, and then a thought crossed his mind. Could it be? He hesitated before asking, "Are you interested in me?" For a long moment, she didn't reply. Then softly,
Yes, I think so.
Michael Connor and Norma Selner approached David Brennan, the director of the Bureau of Hunters, their expressions filled with regret.
We're sorry.
Selner began, but David cut her off, leaning back in his chair. "I didn't call you here for apologies," he said, his tone sharp. "I want an explanation. How did this happen?" Selner took a deep breath. "According to our surveillance reports, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo is not just another awakened being, he's one of the kings. David's eyes narrowed. One of the kings? He questioned Selna, asking if Sung Jin-Woo has the power of a national-level hunter.
I want to clarify something,
She continued.
When a person awakens, their power is linked to an external source, a connection to the other side. Through my ability, I can see those connections. Some shine like diamonds, radiating overwhelming energy. I call them kings.
She hesitated for a moment before adding,
But with Hunter Jinwoo, I saw nothing.
Selna's expression darkened.
When I looked into his eyes, the darkness looked back at me.
A shiver ran down Michael's spine. What do you mean by that? David pressed. Are you saying Hunter Sung Jin-Woo is evil? Selna shook her head.
I'm not speaking about his intentions. Whether he's good or evil is not for me to decide. I'm talking about where his power comes from.
David remained silent, listening.
Unlike other awakened beings, he doesn't draw power from the external channels.
Selna's voice was almost a whisper now.
He feeds on the power within himself.
Her eyes met David's.
His power is infinite.
The weight of her words settled in the room. After a moment of silence, David stood up. You've done well, he said, striding toward the door. Michael, still trying to process everything, frowned. Director, where are you going? David didn't stop. To the 24th underground floor. You're coming with me. The two men stepped into the elevator and began their descent. As the doors closed, David spoke. If we can't use Madame Selna's power, then we need to find another way. Michael's brows furrowed. Another way? Do you remember the first ever S-rank dungeon break? Michael stiffened. Of course. It was a nightmare. The entire west coast of the US was nearly wiped out. He swallowed hard as the memory resurfaced. Only 5 of our strongest hunters survived. 5? Out of hundreds. David nodded. And because of that, the US granted those 5 national-level privileges. That's where the term national-level hunter was born. That day, David continued, his voice heavy, we faced a monster unlike any other, a dragon whose flames never died out. Kamish. Michael clenched his fists. That thing killed so many hunters. The elevator dinged. They had arrived. As the doors slid open, cold air rushed past them. A massive metal door loomed before them. David placed his palm on the scanner, and with a low hiss, the door unlocked. Michael's breath hitched as his eyes landed on the object inside the room. A single runestone, pulsing with ominous energy. David stepped forward. Kamish left us a gift, he said, his voice filled with reverence. Michael stared at the runestone, a remnant of the strongest dragon in history. It's been 8 years since Kamish fell, and none of the 5 surviving hunters were mages. His eyes gleamed. This stone has been waiting for its true owner. At the same time, in Korea, Hunter Sung Jin-Woo stood in front of his mirror, studying himself. He had changed, grown stronger. He ran a hand over his face. No imperfections, no scars. His entire body had been reborn. Feeling a sudden urge, he burst into his sister's. Gina, he said, what do you think of me? She blinked, confused.
Huh?
You know, like my male charm. Gina narrowed her eyes.
Why are you suddenly asking me that? Where did you get that confidence?
Jin-Woo smirked. Come on, be honest. His sister glanced at him, then deadpanned.
You look like a bum.
Jin-Woo chuckled. Thanks for your objective assessment. She kicked him. Ow, he said lazily. You do realize you're kicking an S-rank hunter, right? You might break your leg. Gina scoffed.
I'm still first place in my class, you know.
Jin-Woo smiled. I am starting my own guild. Gina perked up.
Ooh, now I have to call you boss, huh?
Jin-Woo paused, then asked, what do you think of the name solo play? Gina burst out laughing.
That's so lame. You summon black soldiers? You're not playing solo at all.
Jin-Woo frowned. That actually makes sense. Then what do you suggest? Gina grinned.
Ahjin?
Ahjin.
The Ah means I, and Jin means to move forward. It's like leveling up.
And, she added cheekily.
It's also my name backward.
Jin-Woo stared at her. Not bad. Meanwhile, at her apartment, Cha Hai-in lay in bed, tormented by what she had said to Jin-Woo earlier.
Why did I say that?
She groaned, burying her face in her pillow.
Did it sound like a confession? What if he thinks I'm crazy?
She rolled over, sighing.
But he saved my life.
Her heart pounded.
Of course I'm interested in him.
With a frustrated sigh, she tried to push the thoughts away, only for another memory to surface. The moment she was dying, she had seen Hunter Min Byung-goo's soul. He had grabbed her hand and whispered, "Tell Jin-Woo to be careful with his own power." Her breath caught.
I saw Hunter Min Byung-goo.
She murmured. The next day, members of a prominent Knights Guild gathered to discuss the emergence of a new dungeon. However, obtaining a permit this time posed a challenge. Its level rating was unusually high. One of the hunters speculated this might be an S-rank dungeon. His companion quickly refuted, "No, it's classified as A rank." Despite the official rating, the guild was hesitant. If an emergency occurred inside, they could find themselves trapped. And if the dungeon truly turned out to be S rank, they'd have no choice but to retreat. Yet, if they abandoned the raid now, it would tarnish their reputation. Their guild was one of the largest in the country, and walking away from an A-rank dungeon would look weak in the eyes of the public. If they passed on it, the credit would go to other, more renowned guilds. They debated their next move. Their roster included some skilled hunters, but the guild still lacked an S-rank member, a major disadvantage. Some dismissed the importance of an S-rank hunter, but suddenly a female hunter approached. "Why don't we form an alliance?" she suggested. "We can't handle this alone," she continued. "Other guilds are probably already discussing it. We just don't know if they'll agree to work with us." However, she raised a potential issue. There might be complications. Instead of multiple guilds, how about we bring in just one person to join us? One of the hunters furrowed his brow. Why not just clear a lower-ranked dungeon? What's the point of all this? Then, suddenly, realization struck him. Wait, you're talking about Hunter Sung Jin-Woo, aren't you? A heavy silence filled the room. Jin-Woo was a wild card. Teaming up with him could bring fame, but also problems. His power was undeniable, but if he joined, all eyes would be on them. Worse, if they failed, their guild's reputation would take a massive hit. Despite this, one hunter was confident. Under his patronage, we'll make it back in one piece. He turned to his colleagues. Does anyone know what Hunter Jin-Woo is up to right now? Another member replied, No idea. I only know he recently cleared a dungeon on the highway. Determined, the hunter decided to track down Jin-Woo's contact information. But before he could proceed, the guild leader interrupted him. Don't bother. We can't handle this kind of business over the phone. If we want him to join, we have to visit him personally. At the same time, Sung Jin-Woo sat in his office, discussing guild matters with Yu Jinho. I've decided, Jin-Woo said. We'll call our guild a Jin. Jinho's face lit up. Sounds great. Then, after a brief pause, he added, as long as we don't call it solo play. Jin-Woo smirked. Yeah, that's off the table. But they still had a problem. They needed more members. Jinho checked the list of potential recruits. What about Cha Hai-in? He asked. How did things go yesterday? Jin-Woo leaned back in his chair. It didn't work out, he replied. She's not the right fit for us. Jinho frowned. But she's an S-rank hunter, young, talented, and, well, beautiful. What more could you want? Jin-Woo remained silent. Jinho sighed. All right then, what kind of hunter are you looking for? Jin-Woo thought for a moment. I need someone with a hunter's license, someone who won't interfere in guild matters, and most importantly, someone who'll trust me unconditionally. Jinho pondered this for a moment. Then, suddenly, an idea struck him. Wait, I think I know who you're looking for. But before he could say the name, a knock echoed from the door. Jin-Woo got up, half expecting it to be Cha Hai-in again. But as he opened the door, he was greeted by 3 people in suits. His eyes narrowed. They stepped inside, taking seats on the couch. Without hesitation, one of the men got straight to the point. "A massive gate has appeared," he said. "We have video evidence. The gate is abnormally large, and as you know, size often correlates with difficulty." Jin-Woo listened carefully. "But the association refused to grant us clearance. We don't have an S-rank hunter in our team, and without one, we can't enter." His gaze locked onto Jin-Woo. "That's where you come in." Jin-Woo remained silent. "We're prepared to pay handsomely," the man added. "Normally, a hunter receives 10% of the profits. We'll offer you 20%. Jin-Woo leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "Make it 50-50. The room tensed. The man stiffened. 50%. That's— Jin-Woo cut him off. "I'll only agree if you recognize me as a guild, not just an individual hunter." The negotiator hesitated. 40-60? Jin-Woo shook his head. "I won't negotiate." Realizing Jin-Woo wouldn't budge, the man sighed. "Fine, you'll have 50%. Jin-Woo nodded. "The dungeon's been open for too long already," the man warned. "We leave tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow?" Jin-Woo glanced at the time. "I have plans today." He subtly activated shadow extraction, attaching a shadow to the man's leg. "You don't have to worry, I'll be there." Just then, another hunter spoke up. "Wait a second, did your shadow just move?" Jin-Woo's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. It was his mother. "Excuse me," he said. "I need to take this call." He stepped outside and answered. "Mom?" A warm voice greeted him. Surprised? "I bought a new phone. I just wanted to hear your voice." Jin-Woo smiled. "Not disturbing anything important, am I?" she asked. "Not at all." He was standing not far from the entrance of his building. He suggested having dinner together tonight. The next day, in Busan City, a large crowd of hunters gathered near the massive gate. One of the men who had spoken to Jin-Woo checked his phone. 11 a.m. "Come on," he muttered. "I barely convinced him to come. He better not be late." Meanwhile, across the city, Jin-Woo stood outside his home, watching the rain. Did Gina remember to take an umbrella? Then he glanced at his watch. Time to go. With a thought, he activated Shadow Exchange. At the same moment, in a quiet school hallway, 3 students walked toward an empty classroom. Inside, they found a gate, one that shouldn't exist. Before they could get started, one of the students suddenly froze in place, his gaze fixed on something at the back of the classroom. "Why are you shaking?" he scoffed at the others. "As long as the gate is closed, there's nothing to be afraid of. Only hunters can come out of it, and it won't even open for at least a week." But the third student frowned. A massive green hand burst through the gate. In an instant, it grabbed one of the students by the head and lifted him into the air. His muffled screams filled the classroom as he thrashed helplessly. The other 2 stood frozen in horrified silence as their friend was crushed by the orc's hand. The orc's head popped through the gate, its red eyes glowing with murderous intent. The students could only scream out their friend's name in fear after seeing the orc. A massive supreme orc stepped through the gate. Its towering frame was covered in thick green skin, and its glowing red eyes radiated pure malice. Despite their lack of intelligence, these predators possessed instincts sharper than any human hunter. Their hunting techniques had been honed over countless battles, making them the apex predators of their world. The stench of fresh blood filled the air, heightening their primal urges, but they held back. For now, they were here as scouts, and their mission was far more important than their thirst for slaughter. One of the orcs sniffed the air and spoke in a deep, guttural voice. "The hunt begins. Call the others." The Supreme Orc turned its gaze toward the structure above the school building, loomed over them like a fortress. "Once we clear out the humans, we will take this stronghold for ourselves." The orc stepped into the corridor. At the end of the hallway, a group of students stood huddled together, oblivious to the nightmare approaching. The students turned, confusion quickly twisting into terror, but before they could react, the orc lunged forward, tearing into the nearest student. Meanwhile, at the dungeon site, Jin-Woo stood before the towering dungeon gate, thinking. It was far larger in person than it had appeared in the video footage. To the right, the collection team was preparing. To the left, the extraction team stood ready. Among the attackers, there were 13 A-rank hunters and 20 B-rank hunters, a considerable force. It made sense. This guild boasted the highest number of A-rank hunters in the country. Suddenly, Jin-Woo heard a voice behind him. Turning around, he found himself surrounded by a crowd of hunters. That Jeju Island raid was incredible. Those dark warriors, was it summoning magic? How did you even do it? The flood of questions came all at once, making it impossible for Jin-Woo to answer. Then, a female hunter stepped forward. "All right, enough. Give him some space." She turned to Jin-Woo and flashed a confident smile. "I'm Jong Ye-rim, head of the healers from the Knights Guild's elite attack squad." She folded her arms, tilting her head slightly. "We're both responsible people, don't you think? Shouldn't we get along?" Jin-Woo didn't reply. Instead, he turned his attention to the hunter he had spoken to in his office earlier. "There's something you haven't told me yet," he said. The guild leader cleared his throat and stepped forward. "All right, listen up. This raid will be led by me." The gathered hunters groaned in frustration. "Again? But we have Hunter Jin-Woo. Why isn't he leading us?" The guild leader raised a hand to calm them. "Jin-Woo will be backing us up. He'll ensure our safety." Some hunters scoffed. "You think we're so weak that we need protection? Is that what you think of our Knights Guild?" Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. Before he could respond, the leader chuckled. "Our members are quite gutsy. It might have been a bit rude, but we usually have this kind of atmosphere," he said casually. Jin-Woo smirked. "It just means that they're that confident." With that, the time had come. The guild leader signaled the team to move out, and the raid officially began. At that same moment, the Hunters Association received a frantic phone call. A young female dispatcher answered. "This is the Public Emergency Communication Center. What's your emergency?" The voice on the other end trembled with fear. "Please, monsters! They're in our school! A dungeon! It's open!" The dispatcher stiffened. "Stay calm. Where are you right now?" "I'm hiding. In the restroom," the girl whispered. "My friend. He's already dead." The dispatcher clenched her fists. "How many monsters have you seen?" She replied, "I don't know. I can hear screaming everywhere." A loud crash echoed through the phone. "Please, help me. I think I'm going to die." The dispatcher took a deep breath. "Listen to me. Help is coming. The hunters are already on their way. You just need to hold on a little longer." The girl's breathing steadied slightly. "Oh, okay. Can you tell me what kind of monsters they are?" The student hesitated. They look human-like, but their faces are terrifying." A memory clicked. Their skin is green. She also remembered that they were called orcs on TV, but at this time, this orc with a big grey had already entered the restroom and was heading towards the student who was hiding. Suddenly, there was a very loud scream through the tube, and the connection was cut off. However, the dispatcher kept yelling for her to get out of there as soon as possible, because they could smell blood. The last thing she heard was the girl screaming for help. The only sound left was the thud of a phone hitting the floor. Outside the school, terrified students fled the building. Blood painted the walls, a gruesome reminder of the horror inside. One girl stopped abruptly, turning to her friend. "We have to go back! My friend is still in there!" Her friend grabbed her wrist. "The hunters will take care of it. We need to run." A group of students managed to escape, but an orc watched them from a distance. The creature sneered. "Let them run. We still have plenty more to hunt." Inside the school, a group of desperate students barricaded a classroom door. Armed with nothing but chairs and mops, they stood ready. A loud crash shattered their fragile confidence. The barricaded doors exploded apart, and a hulking orc covered in blood stepped inside. One student tried to flee, but an orc behind the wall swung its massive axe, smashing through the wall and obliterating the student behind it. "Find the one with magic," one of the orcs growled. "Kill her first, before she causes trouble." Seeing the orcs, Jin-Woo's sister trembled, her eyes shut and her lips sealed in silence, forming a single, silent plea.
Brother, please save me.
Fear and uncertainty hung thick in the air. Summoning courage, Han Songi stepped forward, her fists clenched tightly at her sides. I'm a hunter," she declared, though her voice wavered slightly, and her powers were limited. But she couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Jin-Woo's sister, sensing the danger, quickly grabbed the girl's arm and whispered urgently,
Don't do it.
Her heart pounded in her chest as she assessed the orcs standing in front of them. The orcs scanned the group with their piercing eyes, their expressions shifting as they sensed something unusual. One of them let out a low growl, its voice heavy with realization. "It's not her," it muttered. Their gaze shifted, locking onto the girl standing next to her. The strong magic. It's coming from her. A chilling realization dawned upon them. Their eyes widened in recognition. She's the one! Without hesitation, one of the massive orcs lifted its brutal axe high into the air, ready to bring it down in a devastating swing that would end her life in an instant. The girls squeezed their eyes shut, bracing themselves for the inevitable. But nothing happened. Instead, a thunderous crash echoed through the room. When they opened their eyes, they saw a figure standing between them and the orc. But this was no ordinary figure. It was different, dark, powerful, and radiating an overwhelming aura. A shadow soldier. Their shock deepened as they recognized the creature. It was their brother's protection. The shadow orc growled menacingly before gripping the enemy's arm and lifting it with effortless strength. With a single bone-shattering punch, it sent the green-skinned orc flying across the room, smashing through the wall and disappearing from sight. The remaining orc froze in place, its body trembling with disbelief. It struggled to comprehend what it was witnessing. Three of my kin, protecting humans. It was a sight it could not fathom. Meanwhile, deep inside the dungeon, Jin-Woo stood at the center of a battlefield, surrounded by elite hunters. The tension in the air was palpable, and every hunter remained on high alert. Suddenly, a monstrous roar shook the dungeon. "A two-headed ogre!" someone shouted as the massive creature emerged from the darkness, its fiery eyes filled with unrelenting fury. "Focus!" the raid leader barked. "This thing is dangerous!" The ogre wasted no time, swinging its gigantic axe toward the hunters. One of them stepped forward, activating his defensive skill just in time. A shimmering barrier formed in front of him. Boom! The impact sent shockwaves rippling through the ground, causing cracks to splinter across the stone floor. Seizing the moment, another hunter leapt onto the ogre's axe, dashing along its massive handle before delivering a precise strike to one of the beast's eyes. "Now! It's blind!" Taking advantage of the opening, the hunters sliced the hands, and the mages unleashed a barrage of spells. Lightning crackled, flames roared, and explosions filled the air as magic rained down upon the ogre. It howled in agony before finally collapsing to the ground. The hunters barely had time to catch their breath, but the raid leader's expression remained tense. This raid won't be easy," he muttered. Jin-Woo stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he surveyed the dungeon. "This is a graveyard," he stated ominously. The leader's face paled. "A two-headed ogre at the entrance? That can only mean one thing. The undead dwell here," Jin-Woo finished. As soon as the words left his lips, a chilling presence filled the air. From the darkness, figures emerged, undead creatures, their hollow eyes fixed upon the hunters. The tension in the room spiked, weapons raised in anticipation of battle. But something was off. "They're not attacking," a hunter murmured in confusion. The undead remained still for a moment. Then, without warning, they turned and fled. Why are they running? Confusion spread among the group. Jin-Woo, however, felt something deep within him. His instincts screamed a warning. Something was terribly wrong. His expression darkened. "I need to leave. Now." The raid leader spun around in shock. "What? Without you? We will die." Jin-Woo met his gaze with an unwavering stare. "I'll leave someone you can trust just as much as me." A dark aura erupted around him as he extended his hand. In an instant, his most powerful summon materialized. Gasps filled the air. "That's the ant from Jeju Island." Jin-Woo turned to Beru, his trusted general. "Protect them," he ordered. Beru's eyes gleamed with excitement. He asked eagerly,
What shall I do about the others?
Jin-Woo nodded. "Do as you please." A roar of exhilaration escaped Beru's lips, his joy barely contained. Without hesitation, Jin-Woo summoned 20 more ant soldiers. The team leader and the healer exchanged wary glances before voicing their concern. "You're just going to leave?" After setting them loose. Jin-Woo's gaze turned cold. "If you want, I can call them back," he said. "But I don't think that would help you." Silence fell over the group. They understood. Jin-Woo quickly checked his skill cooldown. 1 hour and 42 minutes left. His heart pounded. Why now, of all times? Without wasting another second, he sprinted toward the exit, only to be met with a massive army of undead blocking his path. "Move," he commanded. In an instant, every undead creature dropped to their knees, bowing before him. Jin-Woo froze for a brief moment, confused, but there was no time to question it. Summoning Kaisel, his shadow dragon, he wasted no time. The moment Kaisel appeared, Jin-Woo leapt onto its back. The dragon spread its wings wide, soaring through the dungeon's exit and into the open sky. The very heavens trembled as he took flight. With burning determination in his eyes, Jin-Woo issued a single command. "Take me to my sister, as fast as you can." He activated the domain of the monarch's skill to increase speed, boosting all his shadow soldiers' stats by 50%. Below, the people could only watch in awe. As he raced through the skies, the battlefield was drenched in chaos. Jin-Woo's elite warriors, the Shadow Orcs, moved with terrifying precision, tearing through the invading green-skinned orcs. Fangs clashed, swords met flesh, and blood soaked the ground. The green orcs had believed their brute strength would overwhelm their enemies, but they had underestimated their foes. Among the stunned onlookers, the children huddled together, watching in awe and fear. These weren't just ordinary monsters, they were something else entirely. Clad in black armor, radiating a dark and overwhelming presence, the Shadow Orcs stood between the terrified students and certain death. And at the heart of it all, Jin-Woo's sister clung to the cloak of one of these towering protectors.
Is brother here?
She asked, her voice trembling yet filled with hope. The Shadow Orc did not speak, but instead raised a thumb toward the window, signaling that more orcs would soon arrive. At that very moment, deep within the orc stronghold, a massive figure stirred upon his throne. A deep, rumbling voice echoed through the chamber. "The final restriction has been lifted." One of his servants kneeled before him in submission. The figure rose from his seat, his muscular frame adorned with scars from countless battles. "I am Groktaru, chief of the Red Blade tribe," he declared, his voice dripping with ruthless authority. Another orc hesitated before stepping forward. "My lord, a group of high orcs are helping humans." Groktaru's eyes burned with rage. "What?" His fury ignited instantly. The warriors from the strongest clan, acting like weaklings. He gripped his massive sword, his expression twisting into a snarl. The ground seemed to tremble beneath his heavy footsteps as he marched forward. "Lead the way," he ordered. "It's time to slaughter them all." Meanwhile, in the depths of the dungeon, another battle raged on. The shadow ants clashed against an unending horde of undead, tearing through them with unparalleled savagery. The hunters stood frozen, caught between admiration and fear as they watched the dark creatures fight. Some hesitated. Should we leave? What if they turn on us? The raid leader shook his head. Number, we can't stop now. The world is watching. The reporters won't let us walk away from this. Even as they debated, a chilling presence made itself known. Baru had arrived. The giant shadow ant materialized beside them, its sheer aura sending shivers down their spines. The leader flinched, instinctively turning to speak. But in a flash, Baru vanished. A second later, he reappeared at the same spot, moving faster than their eyes could track. With a flick of his claw, he tossed something onto the ground at the leader's feet. His comrades rushed to his side. "Are you okay? What should we do? Follow them or stay here?" The leader, who had collapsed onto the ground in shock, hesitated before glancing down. When he saw what lay before him, his breath hitched. A head. The severed head of the Death Knight, a top-tier undead monster. They were stunned. That ant had slain a high-ranking undead with a single strike. Realization dawned. If the dungeon was filled with powerful undead, then the loot from this battle. The leader smirked. "Do you know how much top-tier crystals are worth?" They couldn't leave yet. As if sharing the same thought, the other hunters turned toward the ants. Greed flickered in their eyes. But another war was brewing elsewhere. Groktaru arrived at the battlefield, his elite warriors behind him. "Groktaru! Groktaru!" His orcs roared his name, their voices shaking the walls. Groktaru smirked. He pointed his muscled arm, showcasing his tattooed skin. "These marks? They are my victories, each one a life taken." His eyes gleamed as he examined his opponents. The shadow orcs had many kills as well. Interesting. But that's all you're capable of. He raised his massive sword, its edge dripping with past conquests. He swung. A shadow orc blocked his strike. Groktaru snarled and pressed harder until his blade sliced clean through. "Ha! You're nothing. Come on, keep me entertained." Then the shadow orc regenerated. Groktaru froze. No matter how many times he cut them down, they came back. His mind screamed, This isn't natural. It's magic." A sinister voice whispered in his head. "Kill the humans." The voice grew louder. "Kill them. Kill them all." His rage boiled. He realized the truth. The caster. It's that girl. His eyes locked onto Jin-Woo's sister. "Capture her. If she falls, these things will stop regenerating." The remaining orcs surged forward. The last shadow orc grabbed two of them, leaving Jin-Woo's sister unguarded. Groktaru, shrouded in darkness, grabbed her by the head. "I knew it was you. I could feel your magic." He tightened his grip. The orc's breath hitched. His eyes darted to the sky. "What is this feeling?" A wave of pure terror crashed into him. His hands shook uncontrollably. Let go of Jin-Woo's sister, and she fell to the ground. Her friend ran up to her and started asking if she was all right. But the orc, who was watching with his gut, felt something approaching him. Something terrible, and it made him shake with fear. And suddenly, the leader of the orcs, Groktaru, began to tell his servants to get down as soon as possible, and at that moment, the wall exploded. A figure soared through the dust, landing between the orcs and the humans. The students coughed, struggling to see, but as the dust settled, Jin-Woo had arrived. He placed a hand on his sister's head. "You're safe now." The orcs backed away. Groktaru saw a large dragon in front of him and a strange hunter with a terrifying power coming from him. His body tensed. He took a step forward, gripping his sword. "I am Groktaru, leader of the Red Blood." Jin-Woo turned to him, expressionless, unimpressed. He raised a single finger and ordered, "Shut up and wait." Jin-Woo held his sister tightly, whispering, "You're safe now. I'm sorry I was late."
Brother.
His voice was soft, but the rage simmering beneath it was undeniable. He turned to the other students. "Are you all okay?" They nodded quickly, still in awe of what had just happened. He looked at Jinna. "What about you?" She hesitated and replied, "Yes, I'm fine." But her eyes widened. She could feel it. A terrifying aura radiated from Jin-Woo, one she had never sensed before. Jin-Woo's gaze fell on his sister's face, and his expression darkened. A red mark stood out against her pale skin. Because that orc had grabbed her with his big hand and lifted her into the air, and at that moment he got very angry. The orc's filthy hand had left its imprint. The air around Jin-Woo trembled. His voice was like ice when he called Igris. The Shadow Commander materialized instantly. Jin-Woo didn't even look at him and ordered, "Take care of her." Igris nodded and gently escorted Jinnah away. Jin-Woo turned to his shadow soldiers and gave another order. "Get the students out of here." His warriors guided the terrified students outside. The orcs trembled. They had never felt a presence like this before. The orc leader, unable to hold back, stepped forward. You were controlling those warriors?" Jin-Woo didn't respond. He didn't have to. The orc swallowed hard as he looked into the eyes of the hunter before him. This wasn't a man. This was a monster, an apex predator. The orcs charged. Jin-Woo didn't move. He waited. As the first orc swung his axe, Jin-Woo caught it, with just his fingers. The orc's scream filled the air. His fingers snapped like twigs. He grabbed him by his fingers, and he started screaming at the top of his voice in incredible pain. Not even a few seconds later, that orc was already slumped on the ground and finished him off with a single kick of his foot. The remaining two orcs ran toward to attack. Jin-Woo raised his hand, using the ruler's hand. He froze the orcs in midair. When he squeezed his hand, both orcs turned into a pile of meat. After that, the entire pack of orcs that were in the room started screaming furiously and running towards the hunter, but he didn't want to just stand there and wait, so he used his bare hands to pierce through their bodies, and in a few seconds they were all down. Only their leader remained, who stood in the corner and shook, for he did not understand how this was possible. Before he could react, a hand clamped down on his head. Jin-Woo shoved Groktaru against the wall. His grip tightened, noticing that the corridor where the orc came from had a lot of students lying on the ground and bleeding. He turned the other way and saw the same thing from another corridor and asked in a low and cold voice, "Why?" Groktaru gasped, trying to find the words. "I heard a voice telling me to kill humans." Jin-Woo leaned in closer. "And me?" His grip tightened. "Do you want to kill me too?" Groktaru shook his head violently. "No, please, spare me!" Tears streamed down the orc's face. Jin-Woo stared. To them, he wasn't human. A blade formed in his other hand. His voice was a whisper. "It doesn't matter anymore." He loosened his grip slightly. "I'll let you live." Groktaru's eyes lit up with hope. However, Jin-Woo's blade rose. "Don't think it will be painless." Elsewhere, inside the massive gate, hunters from the Night Guild fought desperately. One of the healers yanked at an ant's mandibles. "Do you even know how much this is worth?" The massive ant ignored her. It continued devouring monsters. She pulled too hard. The ant accidentally struck her. She stumbled back, holding her arm. Then a shadow loomed over her. "Baru!" The ant general stepped forward and extended his massive claw. A soft glow surrounded her wound. In 1 second, it was gone. She stared in shock. "This is healing magic. How? How was a summon better at healing than me?" The hunters pressed forward. At the end of the corridor, a door slowly opened, and behind it, a nightmare awaited. The Arch-Lich. A collective gasp filled the room. One hunter whispered in terror, "An Arch-Lich?" An Arch-Lich wiped out one of the major Chinese guilds, the Gold Dragon Guild, and caused a dungeon break. A disastrous outcome was avoided thanks to Liu Zhugang. Our assault team is no match for a boss this strong. But it was too late. The dead that hadn't been eaten by the ants came back to life. The undead army approached. The hunter leader screamed. "Close the doors." A mage hunter activated her sacred defense. "I can hold them for 5 minutes." The leader gritted his teeth. 5 minutes wasn't enough. Then a roar echoed through the room. The leader turned. Baru, the ant general, marched toward the Arch-Lich. The undead boss sneered. "This is impossible. Why is the monarch's personal army fighting us?" Baru laughed.
We were chosen by the king, and you were not.
The Archlich froze. No, that's impossible. I must tell the monarch. Baru disappeared. A second later, the Archlich flew across the dungeon. Baru watched him crumble. Mockingly, he said,
You sure have a lot to say for someone who's about to die.
With a devastating blow, the Archlich was sent flying to the side. At that moment, Baru lunged forward, tearing out the dungeon boss's heart with ease, his immense strength allowing him to crush it instantly. As the heart was destroyed, all of the Archlich's subordinates collapsed to the ground, their existence no longer sustained by dark energy. The observing hunters were in awe. Baru had single-handedly eliminated both the dungeon boss and the undead army in a single strike. The raid leader, who had known the Ant General was powerful, was now overwhelmed by the realization of just how formidable he truly was. Another hunter approached the leader and remarked that, with such an immensely strong shadow soldier, Hunter Jin-Woo hardly needed to intervene at all. His army alone was capable of sweeping through any dungeon with minimal effort. If one considered it carefully, Jin-Woo didn't even need to expend all his mana to summon his soldiers. Only half was sufficient, based on the results of this battle. Suddenly, one of the hunters suggested to the raid leader that they should abandon their original alliance plans and instead join Hunter Jin-Woo's guild. The leader, taken aback, responded that the very idea was outrageous. He didn't even know what to say. Merging with another guild, especially one founded by a top-tier hunter like Jin-Woo, was no small matter. The Knights Guild was among the top 5 guilds in the country, and forming such an alliance would have significant implications. The other hunter quickly clarified that he was joking. He knew such a merger was unlikely, especially given Jin-Woo's overwhelming strength. The leader, however, was not amused. He sternly reminded his comrade that even as an S-rank hunter, Jin-Woo was still subject to the law. The comrade apologized, but the leader pressed on, emphasizing that while Jin-Woo's soldiers could clear entire dungeons, standard raid rules still applied. Hunters were required to form parties, and everyone had to abide by those regulations. Yet, despite the rules, his comrade proposed an alternative. Instead of merging, they could provide Jin-Woo with hunters and allow him to empower them with his strength, creating a mutually beneficial arrangement. The leader found himself considering the idea. If they positioned it as support rather than a merger, they could maintain appearances while still working alongside Jin-Woo. Meanwhile, outside, heavy rain poured down as concerned parents gathered near the school entrance, desperate to check on their children. Some wept for those who had been carried out on stretchers. At that moment, Hunter Jin-Woo was in a car with the president of the Hunters Association. The president informed him that of the 213 students who had initially escaped the school, all were now safe. An additional 10 students had been successfully rescued, but had others reacted sooner, more lives might have been spared. Handing his phone to Jin-Woo, the president revealed alarming statistics. Over the past 6 months, the number of dungeon appearances in Seoul had increased dramatically. More concerning, this surge was not limited to Korea. It was a global phenomenon. The number of newly awakened individuals was also rising, suggesting that some unknown system was attempting to maintain a balance. Jin-Woo pondered the implications, realizing that the world itself was undergoing a transformation. The president continued, listing countries: Japan, America, China, France, England, Germany, and even regions of Central Asia, all of whom had expressed interest in making official contact with Jin-Woo. Many had likely done so unofficially already. He admitted that while the association had no authority to prevent these interactions, they had done their best to protect Jin-Woo's information. However, he feared that if Jin-Woo chose to leave South Korea under the current circumstances, adapting abroad would be a challenge. When they arrived at the hospital where Jin-Woo's sister was being treated, the president made one final plea. "We will do everything we can to support you. So, will you please stay in South Korea?" He continued, stating that there were officially 10 registered S-rank hunters in Korea, yet 3 had already been lost. 2 had died at the hands of monsters, while 1 had left for America. The country could no longer afford to stand idly by. The president urged Jin-Woo to play a role in shaping their fate. At the end of their discussion, the president asked Jin-Woo directly, "What is it that you ultimately want?" Jin-Woo's response was clear. "Then, will you allow me to enter high-ranking dungeons alone in the future?" The president hesitated. "If I understand correctly, you want me to lift the restriction on the minimum number of hunters required for a raid." "That's correct," Jin-Woo affirmed. The president explained that the rule was established to minimize casualties as every hunter risked their life during a raid. But as he considered Jin-Woo's capabilities, he realized the true reason behind the guild's formation. Jin-Woo intended to clear dungeons by himself. Recognizing Jin-Woo's unparalleled strength, the president acknowledged the challenge of granting such an exception. "It's difficult," he admitted, "but not impossible. I will do my best." Meanwhile, a journalist had just finished a successful report when her phone rang. It was her brother. He urged her to leave their father's guild division and join his own guild instead. Confused by the sudden offer, she asked if he was serious. Did he even know that Jin-Hui was returning to Korea? Jin-Ho responded confidently. Of course, he knew. After all, she was his own sister. However, his primary concern was filling the final slot needed to officially register their guild. She hesitated. "You're trying to recruit me into a guild that isn't even registered yet? Are you sure you're not being scammed by some shady guy?" Jin-Ho chuckled. "If you knew who this shady guy was, you'd be very surprised." A short while later, Jin-Woo stood with a mildly surprised expression as Jin-Ho introduced him to his cousin, Yoo-Soo-Hyun, an A-rank hunter. As she removed her mask, recognition dawned in her eyes. "You're Hunter Jin-Woo?" she asked, astonished. Jin-Ho grinned. "Why are you so surprised? You're a celebrity yourself." Jin-Woo, however, found himself pondering something else entirely. Jin-Ho was a D-rank hunter, yet his sister was an A-rank. Could awakened abilities be inherited genetically? He had heard of cases among siblings before. Moreover, their father had also been a hunter. Turning to Yoo-Soo-Hyun, he asked, "Has Jin-Ho already explained the details to you?" "He has," she confirmed. "You need one more member to form a guild." Jin-Woo nodded. "Are you sure about this? You could attract a lot of public attention." She simply smiled. "That's fine. It's still better than being associated with my brother, Yoo Jin-sung, and his infamous temper." Suddenly, she had a request. "Would you mind taking a picture with me? I'd like to post it on social media." Meanwhile, at the Hunter Association, discussions were heating up. Concerns arose over the implications of Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers. Some members believed it was unfair for Jin-Woo to be granted such privileges, arguing that the association had always upheld fairness and integrity. One member demanded an explanation from the president. The president acknowledged their concerns but countered with a simple question. If monsters were to emerge from a dungeon, who would you send first? A group of 20 hunters, or one Hunter Jin-Woo? Silence fell over the room. The president continued by asking, "Didn't member Nam Ju-wook recently move to an apartment near the Hunters Guild, even though it is several times more expensive than where he was previously living?" When questioned about the decision, he replied that it was not related to this. The association president highlighted that he had done this for his safety. If ordinary citizens had the means, wouldn't they choose to live in the safest places as well? Right now, guilds worldwide are trying to recruit Hunter Jin-Woo. Do you really think he'll choose to stay in Korea without a good reason? He posed one final question. Do you want a repeat of what happened with Hwang Dong-soo fleeing to America? If you believe this privilege is unfair, I hope you all remember who will save your lives when an S-rank gate opens in Korea. Meanwhile, Huntress Chae scrolled through social media and saw Yoo-Soo-Hyun's post announcing her first day in Ahjin Guild. Shock and fury overtook her. Her entire aura flared with rage, shaking her surroundings. The next day, Hunter Jin-Woo and his partner, Jin-Ho, stood near the gate. Jin-Ho, in awe, remarked that he had never seen a gate this massive before. Jin-Woo, however, thought to himself that if Jin-Ho had witnessed the colossal gate in Busan, he would have likely fainted on the spot, as that gate was significantly larger. A large crowd of reporters had gathered near the gate, bombarding Jin-Woo with questions. They called out for his attention, asking about his impressions of the Ahjin Guild's first raid, the reasoning behind its name, and his relationship with the third founder, Yoo Soo-hyun. Before Jin-Woo could respond, members of the Hunter Association stepped in to shield him from the media frenzy. Jin-Woo turned to them and inquired how such a large crowd had formed. The association members explained that while they had taken measures to keep details confidential, the media had nevertheless managed to uncover the dungeon's location. They advised Jin-Woo to be more cautious with his social media activity, as a single post had inadvertently led to the exposure of this site. Meanwhile, Jin-Ho expressed concern about the logistics of crystal mining, pointing out that we couldn't handle the task of such a big gate. Jin-Woo reassured him that there was no need to worry. His shadow soldiers would take care of it. Woo Jin-chul approached the shadow soldiers and measured their energy levels. He was taken aback by their high rankings, recognizing them as ideal for dungeon clearing. Observing their overwhelming strength, he concluded that those who had doubted the chairman's decision were clearly mistaken. With the inspection complete, the official removed his suit and donned armor, explaining,
"I've been ordered by the chairman to observe your raid. He wants to know if this really is a safe idea."
He then asked Jin-Woo if he minded his presence. Jin-Woo, unfazed, responded, "Are you sure about this?" Shortly after, they entered the dungeon. The association official watched in astonishment as the shadow soldiers effortlessly annihilated the A-rank monsters. The soldiers moved with ruthless efficiency, giving the creatures no time to react. The official, recognizing the strength of these monsters, knew that even experienced hunters struggled against them. However, Jin-Woo's forces dispatched them with ease. His attention shifted to Commander Igris, whose combat skills stood out. Wielding a newly acquired sword, Igris unleashed a barrage of lightning-fast attacks. For an ordinary hunter, such rapid strikes would require immense magical ability, yet Igris executed them effortlessly. Each swing of his sword sent powerful electric surges that obliterated everything in his path. The official admitted to himself that even in a one-on-one fight, he might not stand a chance against Igris. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo noticed one of his ant soldiers devouring a monster. Annoyed, he kicked the ant, sending it crashing into the wall. He reprimanded it, reminding his soldiers that the monsters were incredibly valuable and not to be wasted. Turning to his other shadow soldiers, he orders them to begin mining magic crystals immediately. The Hunter Association official was astounded. This man wasn't just clearing dungeons, he was simultaneously collecting corpses and gathering mana crystals. This was no ordinary hunter operation. This was a full-scale, high-efficiency assault led by a single individual. He now understood why the chairman had insisted on him accompanying the raid. Suddenly, the dungeon boss appeared before them. Without hesitation, Jin-Woo dismissed all his warriors except those assigned to mining. The official was perplexed.
"Why did you have the other soldiers go away? Your summons are strong enough to take down the boss themselves."
Jin-Woo summoned his blade and responded that if he relied too much on his shadow warriors, his own skills would deteriorate. Without warning, he dashed forward with incredible speed. Before the official could process what was happening, Jin-Woo had already defeated the dungeon boss. A system notification confirmed the boss's defeat. As a result, Jin-Woo's level increased to 101. His specialization improved, and his shadow summoning skill, Guardian of Shadows, the domain of a monarch, also advanced. The rollback time for his shadow swap ability had now been reduced from 3 hours to 2. Gaining an extra hour per level, he realized that at this rate, he would soon have the ability to reach his mother and sister instantaneously. The association official, still in shock, examined the boss's corpse. It possessed extraordinarily tough scales, making it a formidable defense while also serving as a deadly weapon. Yet, Jin-Woo had sliced through it effortlessly with mere daggers. His astonishment grew as he watched Jin-Woo activate his skill, extracting the boss's shadow. The shadow extraction was successful, and the newly created soldier emerged at an initial level of 13. Jin-Woo analyzed it closely. It resembled his shadow mage, fangs, both in physical form and magic energy. However, it was noticeably smaller, which was unusual, as shadows typically retained their size. Despite this, the energy radiating from it was immense. Jin-Woo speculated that, like fangs, this new soldier could potentially grow in size. Deciding on a name, he christened it Jima. Jin-Ho, observing from the sidelines, was not surprised. He had come to expect nothing less from Jin-Woo, whose ability to transform powerful monsters into shadow soldiers never failed to impress. However, their moment of triumph was cut short. The dungeon suddenly began to collapse. Realizing they had to exit before the gate closed, the team hurried to escape. As they emerged, the gathered reporters gasped at the sight of a towering orc carrying an enormous monster on its shoulder. Mistaking it for an escaped creature, the reporters panicked, shouting for everyone to run. But within moments, they realized it was merely one of Jin-Woo's shadow soldiers. Stunned by the sheer scale of Jin-Woo's accomplishment, they quickly began snapping photos of the massive orc. The creature, initially confused by the attention, eventually smiled and scratched its head. Jin-Ho, standing beside Jin-Woo, noted that there were even more reporters now than before. The public reaction to their guild's first raid was overwhelming. Much to Jin-Woo's dismay, he had not intended to attract this level of attention. Meanwhile, Woo Jinchul, still breathless from what he had witnessed, met with the president of the association.
And that's what happened.
The president inquired about his impressions, noting that, as a veteran, the official had surely seen many raids before. The official, still processing everything, responded,
"What I witnessed wasn't a raid. It was a massacre."
The president, now fully understanding the gravity of the situation, dismissed the official, allowing him to rest. Left alone, he gazed out of his window, deep in thought. Jin-Woo had not only cleared a high-rank dungeon, but had also harvested resources and strengthened his army, all on his own. To call him a one-man raid team was an understatement. Jin-Woo was not just a hunter. Jin-Woo was an entire guild unto himself. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, Japan, an ominous event was unfolding. A colossal red gate had appeared, stretching across the sky, dwarfing even the tallest buildings. Crowds gathered in shock, staring in disbelief at the sheer magnitude of the phenomenon. The world was changing, and something enormous was about to happen.